Welcome to part 3 of my review of the new BMW 4 Series. Now, if you've seen part 2, you might have heard me say something along the lines of how the 430i was my new favourite car. Just know that that was a darker, less enlightened time than what we live in today, because it was before I drove this, the M440i. Outwardly, there's little to tell this car apart from the exterior badging, apart from its smaller brothers, but it does score a matte grille surround, matte rear vision mirrors, and also a small lip spoiler on the back. It also scores 19-inch alloys, BMW laser headlights, and I think it actually looks really good in this metallic Dravit grey, as BMW call it. And then there's this car's most controversial front feature, the grille. And I feel like I'm alone in saying this, but I actually quite like it. It's really grown on me. But is it a turn-back car, a car so good looking that you have to turn back and look at it after you've parked it? Yeah, the current model looks a bit like a Mustang, and in my book, that's no bad thing. But it's under the hood where you'll find the biggest difference between this car and its smaller brothers. In place of the 4-cylinder 2-litre engine found in the 420 and 430i, here we've got a turbocharged 3-litre straight 6 with 285 kilowatts of power and 500 newton meters of torque. 0 to 100 in just 4.5 seconds, which is only 0.3 of a second slower than the M4. The M440i also gets the Idrive all-wheel drive system, which really does make a huge difference, especially in the wet. The interior has the same high quality design of the 420 and 430i, although here it's in burgundy and black, and I think it actually looks really good. One small change though is that the textured plastic that you find on the center console and up here on the dash is a bit different in this car. Here it's more like a mesh that's been sort of laminated in a clear plastic. The black headliner does make it a little bit darker in here than the other two, but the sunroof certainly helps lighten things up a bit. The Idrive system in the center console is pretty much exactly the same as you find it in the 430i. One thing BMW does do that's very nice is that they personalize the car on the display to be your exact car. So it has your paint scheme and your wheels, which is a nice little touch as opposed to some generic car. One cool little feature I did discover during the week is how this car can read the news out to you. BMW helpfully provide a news service, but they don't want you reading news stories while you're driving. So with their soothing robotic voice, they can read you all of the latest news stories.
UK jabs top 20 airmen as Europe lags behind, Czechs turn to Sputnik V. Britain said Sunday that more than 20 million of its people have received at least one dose of a coronavirus vaccine, while the rest of Europe
Coronavirus? BMW also has their own virtual assistant, which is voice activated. Hey BMW, put the windows down. Magic. Moving down the console here, we've got more or less the same assortment of buttons and dials that we found in the 430i, with the iDrive wheel here also doubling as an input for the navigation system. You can actually write in your destination letter by running your finger over the top of the jog wheel here. It's a little bit fiddly to use. It's not quite as good as Audi's system where you can write in the whole thing directly onto the screen, and personally I just find it easier to type in my destination directly onto the screen, or you can even speak it in using the Hey BMW feature. We've got the drive modes: Sport, hit it again to get Sport Plus and Sport Individual, Comfort, Eco Pro and Adaptive. The digital instrument cluster, pretty much the same as what you find in other new BMWs at the moment. The fonts have been changed up a little bit here for the M440i, otherwise it's pretty much the same. We've got center screen maps available, but they're not terribly detailed and they just kind of zoom in and out a little bit. It's just not the same full screen map experience that you get in an Audi. Standard BMW steering wheel here, leather wrapped with a couple of paddle shifters at the back and the adaptive cruise control buttons here on the left, sound system on the right to control the hardened carbon sound system, which is brilliant in this car. Seating position, again, very comfortable, lots of adjustment. You can adjust the bolsters as well. The seats are heated but not cooled. Not great visibility in the blind spots, but you kind of expect that with those high sills. And okay visibility out the back, at least the rear vision mirror is a good size. And predictably, the back seat is still a no-go zone for a 190 centimetre tall adult like me behind my own seating position. Stop! BMW have pulled off something of a magic trick with this car in that they've turned it into a chameleon. It's actually really two cars in one, because in comfort mode around town, it's actually quite a polite executive cruiser, but as soon as you flick it into sport mode, everything changes really quickly. It will drop from 7th gear back down to 3rd or 4th. The engine makes a lot more noise. You feel the suspension stiffen up with the adaptive dampers, and the steering becomes much heavier, and then it becomes a proper performance machine. Driving on the freeway in Eco Pro mode, doing 80 kilometers an hour at the moment, it's very quiet in here. The engine doesn't appear to be revving very much at all. I can't actually see how much it's revving because the odometer has been switched out for a fuel consumption gauge on the digital instrument cluster, which now shows that I'm using almost no fuel. But as we exit the tunnel in a moment and the speed limit changes from 80 to 100, let's see how it goes in Sport Plus mode. Okay, Sport selected. That's more like it. See what I mean by a chameleon? It can be one or the other. It is fantastic. But of course, doing that doesn't do much for your average fuel consumption. The official figure on this car is 7.8 litres per 100 kilometres. I've been getting a bit higher than that. In fact, in the first 24 hours I had this car, I managed to get through an entire quarter tank. And that's not doing anything out of the ordinary, really. Maybe I was getting a little friendly with the accelerator, but I was really just driving around town. So save sport mode for when you really need it would be my advice, unless you've got deep pockets for petrol. But I think for daily driving, adaptive mode is really where it's at, because then the car responds to whatever it is that you're doing. So around town, it'll be nice and refined and polite and quiet. If you put your foot down, the power comes on straight away without you having to make any adjustments to the car. It's pretty intuitive like that. And of course, it's on windy roads where the BMW M440i does some of its best work. And you really feel the power and the adaptive suspension kick in, and in combination with the all-wheel drive, just provide a brilliant driving experience. Love the sound of those down changes. There are paddle shifters. I don't need to use them. The Steptronic transmission just always seems to be in the correct gear, and on that little corner there where I often lose traction in other cars, not a problem for the X-Drive all-wheel drive system here in the M440i. Right now the car is doing most of the driving for me. I've got the assisted driving control on, and all of the acceleration, braking, and even a lot of the steering input is being handled by the car. It doesn't stop quite as smoothly as I can though. Of course, steering and accelerating isn't the only thing that this car can do by itself. It can park itself too. To start parking, take hands off the steering wheel and release brake. I'm in your hands, BMW. There are lights that have lit up on the steering wheel as it performs this maneuver. It's doing all of the braking and accelerating by itself. It just put itself in drive. That's weird. And we're done. That would have to be the best self-parking system I've seen. Completely automated, all on its own. The only thing is we've parked in front of a driveway, so it's not that clever. Priced from $116,900 and as seen here, $118,000, the BMW M440i really is the ultimate combination of great looks and terrific performance. Out of the three cars in the new 4 Series range, the 420i is frankly underpowered. And you're not maybe getting the most out of the M440i unless you're taking it out on twisty country roads and you're really ready to hammer that throttle, because the fuel bill could get to be a little bit extortionate. Which is why I think the 430i could be the best choice for around town urban driving. There's plenty of power with loads of refinement. But of course, the only way you can sort out which BMW 4 Series is right for you is to take them all for a test drive, which you should do.